an enforcer graced Sahara with his presence. She immediately tensed, thinking something was wrong.
Is everything all right, officer?
Just peachy. She couldn't see his eyes clearly because he wore shades, but he seemed to be checking her out. All the enforcement did, so strange to do inside at night. What's your name?
Sahara.
I'm Enforcer Lugnut.
Howdy.
Lugnut's gaze didn't falter. His eyes seemed to be focused on her boobs. She was beginning to think that she was an item on the menu. Are you enjoying your stay here?
It's good so far.
You sure are a pretty little thing. Sahara shifted her weight. This definitely was not an appropriate conversation.
What can I do for you?
How about, in your downtime, we hook up?
Is this guy serious?
Wondered Sahara. She gaped at him.
I don't think that's a good idea. I'm only here to tempt the chosen contestants.
Sahara replied, attempting to move away, but Lugnut grabbed her elbow. When she tried to snatch her arm, he only held it tighter. Don't be like that, sugar. Moving in quickly, the buff candidate sneered. Is everything okay? Sahara relaxed her shoulders.
I was just leaving.
I'll walk with you, he told her. Enforcer Lugnut scrunched his nose but didn't reply. Lugnut must have not wanted a confrontation because he walked off. Sahara sighed.
Thanks for that. He was being pushy.
That clown is a trip. He narrowed his eyes in the direction Lugnut had gone to stand by one of his peers. Rolling her eyes, she replied,
Enforcer Lugnut needs to worry about his duties while he's on the clock.
Nice name.
That's what he told me it was.
His eyebrows rose. You're kidding. She smiled, shaking her head, and he chuckled.
I'm Sahara.
Getting a better look at him, Sahara couldn't stop her eyes from roaming all over him. Tall, muscular, and his toffee-colored skin looked as smooth as silk, not to mention how attractive he was. Mirroring her ogling, the guy must have realized that he was checking her out also, because he diverted his gaze quickly. Clearing his throat, he said, I'm Tobias. I'm not impressed with this resort so far. It's nice, not a more gorgeous place in the world, but the staff could use some training in etiquette. Sahara giggled.
Yeah, I don't think he was getting the hint.
No problem. It looked like you needed a scapegoat.
You read my mind. So, where are you from?
San Diego. You?
My mom was born in the Dominican Republic. She married my father and moved to Nashville when she was pregnant with me.
At least she made it to the UO before it all went to hell, turning the world into a dictatorship. Sahara nodded. After World War III, the United States became the United Origins, where the new regime took over. The war took place when Sahara was a young child, so she didn't remember it or how life was beforehand. From what her parents had explained, things were very different before the world was at each other's throats. Lots of countries were left in ruin and still uninhabitable. For years, the nation struggled to maintain balance. Almost a decade ago, an unprecedented event occurred. The nations decided to elect a world dictator. One nation under his reign. That was the moral code of the world dictatorship. On one hand, the new regime seemed to be what the nations needed. They focused on rebuilding the places that suffered the least amount of damage. And in the beginning, they aided those in need financially. But not long after life began looking up, so did the regime's strict mandates. There were laws like the government having to approve your place of residence. The process was more difficult than a background check. Most poverty and middle-class citizens were stuck living in the same residence until their grave. If you didn't agree with the government's rules, it was best not to voice your opinion. If an enforcer heard you ridiculing the regime, you'd be slapped with a blasphemy charge so fast it would make your head spin. There was also an under 21-year-old curfew in effect. Of course, the most vital law was the government arranged marriages at the age of 21. It didn't get more ridiculous than that. The icing on the cake was that everyone was stuck with the person arranged for them for life. Divorce was not allowed. Forcing someone to marry a person they didn't know until literally death do you part didn't make sense. What was the point? The regime claimed arranged marriages were to uphold morals and values that had been taken for granted. Back in the olden days, marriage was respected and divorce was frowned upon. Though that may be true, arranging marriages was not the answer to restoring human character. Soon, Sahara realized that it boiled down to control. The regime wanted to prove they controlled the most important matter in the world, love.